Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series Premier League. We're in the final group. We are in the winner's match, and we are now getting ready to jump back into game number 1 on Vonnie Research Station.
Yep, we will continue where we left off after Welmu realized a couple of minutes into the game, he's like, hey, I don't hear the sound of my probes mining anything, or before I know it, maybe my Nexus is under attack, and I don't hear that either. So we're just going to hop into the game. We have recovered the game. We, of course, apologize for the inconvenience that this happened. We don't know why it happened, but what we do know is that we can continue the action right now. So hopefully neither player will be too affected by this, Nate. First probe is going to head into the main base from iaguz, and hopefully Welmu will hear the sound of bullets firing away at his probe.
As it dies, a horrible, painful death. So, iaguz, like we talked about just as we went into that short break.
It's always hard to get a hop into straight back into it, right? It's like, okay, we're just chilling. It's like, oh, probe gets killed, and yeah, I guess, all right.
Well, he opened up 3 barracks. We were talking about how this was the same way that he opened up from Deadwing, and he used his 3 barracks opening, which gave him a lot of units to punish a very greedy third base that Max had gone for. Now, this opening out of Welmu, much more standard in terms of what we normally expect in PvT. So, robotics facility makes a lot of sense. Probably see him go up to Colossi, try to take a third base. Yeah. All the beautiful things that you do as a Protoss.
It's been a while since we saw Welmu very active in this matchup, or that we see him a whole lot of important games. Of course, we did see him play against Beastie, but I would say Beastie is a slightly different Terran than iaguz is, especially because he has a lot of very unique builds, while I feel iaguz is more of the type of Terran that, you know, watches Pro League, watches the GSO, and sees what a couple of the top Terrans are doing over there. And then he just tries to give his own twist to it, while BC always has his own idea about the game. iaguz is going to drop a bunker, perhaps a tiny bit worried about some silly gateway aggression. You know, it's really funny because, like, obviously, you know, 4-gate or something in this matchup is not something we see very often. But because the meta has shifted so much and everybody's trying to be greedy, you can actually catch people off guard with a 4-gate. I know it sounds stupid, Nate, but it's true.
It's happened. It's happened every now and again. MC's one of those guys that's always willing to bust out a crazy build like that.
I did it in the last offline tournament we attended.
How successful was it?
I won against Intense.
There you go. I lost actually, the guy I played in the WCS qualifier wrecked me with the 2-base 4-gate because I totally wasn't expecting it.
No, it's just one of these things that obviously if you see it coming, then it's going to be the easiest hold of all time.
But if you don't have a bunker, things get pretty weird.
I do have to add, of course, that I did lose this series against a much better Terran player than I am.
It's okay. What matters is you won the one we were talking about.
So Mr. is going up as well in the front. It's very important for Welmu that he pays attention to his observer when it makes his way across the map. Because I am that guy, Nate, that flies his observer straight into the missile turret. Let's see if Welmu's that guy. Welmu's not that guy.
No.
That's why he's Welmu.
He's, yeah, very, very attentive to those observers. Now, it's probe heading over towards the right side. Maybe try to get a spotting pylon, or at least spot for any drops that might move out. iaguz is, once again, not afraid to move a small contingent of bio units to scour the map for any potential pylons, take the watchtower, make sure nothing really crazy is happening. His SCV is by the 3rd base, so he knows that there's something really crazy happening from Welmu, and he's even going to send a Marine to this gold base to make sure that he's not doing anything super crazy.
Yeah, I think this is just one of these moments where iaguz kind of hopes that Welmu gone full crazy and would have actually gone up to 3 bases as quick as Max said did it. But Welmu did, and Welmu looked at that Bioforce and he probably was like, man, you sure as hell squeezed out a lot of bio units early on, which, you know, normally should be a good thing for me because this means that the medevac phase is going to start slightly later in this game. But I'll warp in 2 Zealots just in case that if I drop a force field, I actually have units to kill that squeeze by the force field as well before my Colossus is out. So I actually think that Welmu's pretty happy with how this game has opened so far, Nate. If I was Welmu, I'd be happy with this. You know, medevac drop phase is going to start a little later. You know, your opponent made a crazy amount of units that he's not able to do a whole lot with. Welmu is going up to a very high number of gateways. He's going to already go up to 7 gates, but I still think this is just a 3-base build order.
I can understand why on a map like this, when you have to worry about those big drops coming in.
Is it a 3-base build order though, Nate? Is it now?
Oh, that probe's going down the left side. His observer sees the army moving out.
He hasn't been building probes in a while, and of course, because iaguz made so many bio units, that means the medevacs are going to be later. And if the medevacs are later,
he's got another Marine actually scouting around the map, so he'll see the probe that would place a forward pylon. I don't think he can. I don't think he can push. He's gonna just take his 3rd base.
All right.
Unless iaguz walks his army into this and dies, which even then he still doesn't have that many zealots with it. So
I mean, I'm looking at the forges, Nate, that don't exist. I'm looking at the probe count that's not going up. It's been on 45 for a while.
He sent another probe. He's trying to move out, but I don't know. I'm not getting the impression that he's going to be able to do that anytime soon.
He knows that iaguz is going up to 3 bases during all of this as well. Now iaguz has picked up 2 medevacs full of bio units. This Phoenix misses it. The Mothership Core is there though, but it's, I mean, just a single photon overcharge. I don't understand that Stalker warp in. Okay, he has a few more Stalkers. He's going to have a lot of Blink Stalkers. He might actually get both medevacs over here, Nate.
Yeah, that'd be a nice pickup for Welmu. Now, this is what's going to start to slowly open things up for him to push across the map, which seems to be what he wants to do. iaguz just gut checked the 3rd base of Welmu. He's like, still no 3rd Nexus.
Welmu's going to have to attack. Maybe he will drop the Nexus.
With no Forge and 4 Colossi.
You have to attack. Like, maybe he drops the Nexus now because he has so many, you know, extra minerals anyway. And then he maybe can sell the ID. There's a 2nd starport going down. From now on, if I was iaguz, I would make nothing but Vikings. Of course, losing those 2 medevacs is painful, but he needs Vikings ASAP. Yeah,
Welmu is coming down the map. The Marine spotting on the left isn't going to see it. The Marine at the Watchtower isn't going to see it either. The Observer for Welmu knows the entire position of pretty much all of iaguz's active forces, and he sees some medevacs get loaded up. Yeah. 4 medevacs get boosted away.
What? Like, he's gonna have no units at home. Look at the Stalkers.
Oh,
no, the Blink.
They're coming.
Bomber against Bolt.
iaguz realizes, he's like, well, I didn't want to lose my whole army for free, so let's try to avoid that, but still grabs a medevac.
Force field's gonna have to be good, though.
Yeah, 4 Colossi. The damage output on this army is just so strong. The Viking count
Blink
not
might get
strong
a medevac.
enough. Goes for another one, not able to get it.
If I was iaguz, I would abandon my low ground. I don't think he has to defend on the low ground. He has to defend on the high ground.
Scary spot for iaguz. Yeah, that 3rd base, I don't see any way he can hold that with the force fields blocking the units from coming down that main ramp, and everything just gets funneled into a choke. And the Colossi just destroy all of it. It's all gone.
I think that was a big mistake, positioning a couple of bio units on the low ground. He should have just sacrificed his base immediately, lift it up, fly it away to the corner of the map, and try to save your SCVs. Now this orbital is going to die, but Welmu is not going to stop over here. Does he have a pylon? Yes, he does. Warps in 8 more Blink Stalkers. He did kind of run out of force fields, but I don't think it's going to matter. These Colossus, they have so much DPS.
SCVs into the meat grinder, and the Vikings even trying to focus right on these real Colossi. Now he's actually hitting the hallucinated one. He's not going to have enough to stop this. Welmu looking like he's going to be able to take game number 1 in a pretty handy fashion. There's nothing really left to take care of these Colossi with so many Stalkers for him.
Yeah, soon there's only 1 Colossus left though, but I mean, it's still 100 supply. He still has so many Blink Stalkers, and even when that Colossus falls, Welmu will still win the game. Picks up game number 1 on Vonnie Research Station with a build that definitely has fallen out of fashion. Just like 8-gate, Blink Stalker, Colossus push. What GR is this, Nate?
Yeah, a bit interesting to say the least. Welmu, I really didn't feel like there was a whole lot of room for him to make that push, but iaguz, the 2 medevacs that went out that got caught, and then when he loaded up the 4 medevacs, and it's like, okay, yeah, you didn't get them all caught by the Stalkers, but you unloaded close enough to your opponent's army that he was still able to kill half the units that you had anyway.
I think the first 2 things are the most important there. I think the first thing that is very important, why this push may have worked, is because iaguz went for 3 Rexes instead of 2. That means that the medevacs are going to be later. That also means that the Vikings are going to be later. That's not the end of the world just yet, but that's, you know, that's something. That gives a little bit of wiggle room for the build of Welmu. But then, absolutely, those 2 medevacs that he decides to drop into the natural
the
Welmu.
20 supply that he threw away for nothing. He didn't even kill a single Stalker with that drop.
Drops are always fantastic, but as a Terran player, you do have to ask yourself, do I have to drop a Protoss that's on 2 bases while I am a 3-base Terran and this Protoss has no forges? No, absolutely not.
No,
you don't
have
to
drop.
drop.
The guy has no forges. If you're scanning actively, or even if your drop goes in, you hit both bases, you're like, hey, no forges at all. There's really only one thing you can do in this position.
Yeah, he must have just misread the situation over there, that he thought there must have been forges, and he must have thought that Welmu was going up to 3 bases, and he's like, alright, you know, I'm going to try to see what I can do, but the Blink Stalker number was way too high. I did like the way that iaguz was moving his medevacs during that push. You know, he made it hard for Stalkers not to snipe it immediately, but that didn't change that. In the end, he did lose all units, and he lost 1 medevac, and the other one was very low on HP. And then Welmu was like, cool, now I'm going to march across the map, and then, like you said, Welmu or iaguz picked up all the units, trying to fly to the other side of the map. You know, best defense is offense. Well, not if there are 9 Blink Stalkers trying to chase your offense.
Yeah, those big drops, if you can catch, I mean, if the Protoss army is halfway across the map and you get 4 medevacs in their base, that's when the Protoss is hating life. But, you know, in the position that he was in, having the Observer, because even if iaguz had scanned and killed that Observer, then, you know, he maybe has to lift that 3rd, but he can basically kill the natural and perhaps like just force a really weird base trade, which generally favors a Terran when you can lift your buildings off.
And it is indeed a hard base to attack into. We were talking about that earlier in the PvP. Like Vonnie Research Station, the main base is very hard to enter. It's a very small ramp. So if iaguz would have put his units in a good concave, pull SCVs, and then squeeze out enough Vikings, then maybe it would have been enough. But overall, I think just the first decision to drop a 2-base Protoss that's about to attack you, that is a horrible one. That's something that you should never do. But of course, for us, it's very easy to say, as we saw the entire base of Welmu, and iaguz did not.
Yep, a bold move, to say the least. As we are now loaded into game at number 2 on Deadwing, the northwest position. Our Finnish Protoss player, he is Welmu.
Man, talking about consistency, this guy, you know, even when he takes a break, he just comes back, shows up in the round of 32.
What's up? I'm ready to take my spot. I have a seat with my name on it for 7 seasons.
Yeah, in the round of 16. There are so many people that struggle so much in the round of 32. Anyways, it's not over yet. Over here in the left bottom side of Deadwing, the man from down under, representing Root Gaming, it is iaguz. With that manly beard. What a cool beard.
Yeah. Not too many people could rock it like that.
I could not rock it like that, Nate.
I think the best image I've seen of iaguz was in one of the Oceanic tournaments. It might have been back when they had the individual WCS qualifiers per country. But he like sat in his booth with a battle axe. It was pretty hardcore. He like brought a giant axe with him into the playing booth. He's a very interesting character, to say the least.
He's been around for a long time. A lot of people have only heard about iaguz over the last 2 years, you know, especially since he joined Root. He's been having a couple of good runs. He had a good run in one of these online tournaments as well. That was just like massive, you know, like 128 good foreign players were participating, and iaguz, or maybe it was 64, but iaguz went very far. I think he went to the top 4 or top 6 of that tournament. But a long time ago, the Intel Extreme Masters in Shindu? No, damn it, I always forget which IEM that was. It was the IEM that Elfie, another Finnish player, made it to the final, and the IEM that Idra won. That was the very first international tournament that I ever saw iaguz attend, and that is where Carmack dropped the name of the Gimli Terran. Damn it, which IEM was that, Nate? What city was that?
It was before my time, Kev.
Hangzhou, maybe. I think that's what it was. I'm not 100% sure. Guangzhou. IEM Guangzhou.
That makes sense.
Yes. Man. Idra, Elfie, iaguz. Those were the days.
Well, who's still standing now at WCS?
Who was the last reigning champion of that tournament? It's really cool to see how careers evolve, though.
Yeah. iaguz, I think, had a nice bit of explosion in popularity once a lot of the other really top Australian players. Like, in the scene, he was never bad compared to them, but they took a bit more of the spotlight than him. Players like Moonglade, especially. I mean, now working for SpoTV in Korea, and it's pretty much him tearing up the Australian Champion League with King Kong, basically. Just those two guys wrecking it.
And Pig, of course.
And Pig. Well, Pig travels quite a bit, too.
Yeah. Pig is awesome, man. He's in the round of 16. So it's either going to be the second Finn or the second Australian qualifying for the round of 16. Man, didn't even think about that. How deep is that, Nate?
That's pretty...
Yeah.
So it's become a battle under the ocean.
Of nations.
Are you ready to fight? Well, I mean, yeah, that is an interesting storyline, to say the least.
Or if Maxit advances, the second Chinese.
You've created a feud between these 3 countries that didn't even realize they were engaged in an epic battle.
Robotics facility being warped in. I definitely expect a different playstyle from Welmu. What he busted out of Vonnie Research Station, that's cool, and that's something you can definitely catch your opponent off guard with. But there is no way that iaguz would make the same mistakes if he would have to play against that build again. So I don't think that's ever going to happen. This time he's also opened up very differently, Nate. He kind of reversed his build orders. It's kind of cool to see, because earlier today he went for the command center first into 3 racks on Deadwing, and he went for the 2 marine into fast expand into fast factory on Vonnie Research, and this time he's doing it the exact other way around. Maybe these are just like his 2 go-to build orders.
I mean, every Terran at this point has mixed in the mine drop build into their arsenal, because they can be so good. Like, you don't have to be an expert at mine usage. You know, the more practice you have, obviously, the better.
You don't have to be an Athenius, that's what you're saying.
Well, I have my fair share of experience of mine drops, to say the least. But, you know, if you can get the mine to the other guy's base, you know, then there's a chance that they'll make a mistake with the way that they pull their probes or the mothership core and observers out of position. You can get a lot of damage done, even just zoning units away because they don't want to go into the range of that mine. So I like this build order out of iaguz. I've been you know, the 2-base mine drop is something that has really been heavily trending in this matchup.
Yeah, man. It's been a nightmare to deal with as a Protoss player, but a lot of Protoss players are keep getting better and better and dealing with it as well. Just yesterday we saw our German Protoss, Showtime, handling it in style on Catalina.
It's cool. It's cool how the builds move around like that, because I think this time last year we were still in a very heavy 3-base SCV pull phase for Terran versus Protoss, which we really don't see a whole lot anymore.
I hated that phase as well. That was really not my favorite phase in PvT. I'm so happy to see how it's currently being played out. Even when it can be a little tough as a Protoss player, I think it's a very fun matchup to watch, and it's even a fun matchup to play. Way more fun than the good old let's try to drop one time and then pull the boys and see how this goes.
Not sure anybody enjoyed the SCV pull days, but it's
where
we
are
go.
The observers?
Drops coming in. Welmu. Is he ready for these mines? 2 of them burrow, and there's nothing here to deal with them, but it detonates on just a single probe. The other mine is not fired just yet as another observer comes in, but he might miss. Ooh. Oh, okay.
Wow, Welmu played with fire over there.
Yeah, sending your probes back like that. Confident boy.
I wonder if he even was aware of the fact that that was mine number 2 instead of mine number 1. So this is kind of something that I think is already worth talking about. Welmu has mentioned, and he hasn't played a whole lot over the last 2 months. Just the last month he's been practicing. I'm sure that he's familiar with this build. I'm sure that he's played against it quite a few times, but he's one of the very few Protoss players, Nate, that I see produce 1 observer on Deadwing and then go into a Colossus. Like, that's not something that a whole lot of Protoss players do right now. 3 observers before a Colossus is normally what we see, and this mine is going to get a juicy shot off.
Nice. 5 kills on that Widow mine for iaguz. Welmu.
And that's all you want.
Yeah, that is enough, to say the least, especially since he still has that medevac buzzing around the map. And he can always send that back home, mix it in with his army, go for some marine drops later, or just bolster his forces for when he reaches that very critical mid-game stage. Now, iaguz is on 3 barracks. He's starting his 3rd command center. Where does Welmu go from here? He has Blink on the way, and Extended Thermal Lance finishing, but Roddy.
He doesn't have a forge
Where's the forge?
He doesn't have a forge, Nate. Is he really going to do this again? But this time the medevacs are so much quicker that I feel there's no way that iaguz is going to give him that much free.
Wasn't it one of the builds Alicia did a lot? By the way, one of the gases in Welmu's main, he has not resaturated, only a single probe on it, so it's really slowing down his ability to get all this tech that he needs.
He just fixed it, no worries. Yeah, I actually think he's going to do the exact same thing. And
Alicia did a lot of that when he was playing in that group last year that we talked about so much.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This time the second starport I feel is quick. I feel overall just everything has gone a little bit better for iaguz. And iaguz threw down a scan. He's like, alright, I see gateways, I see a Colossus, I see a Twilight, but I don't see a forge. And if you're going to do the same thing, look at this time the first Vikings are already in production, like way before this army is even marching out. Maybe it's just going up to 3 bases. Like, if
I still think it's fine though, because there's still no forges, so iaguz's army, given time, is just going to be better.
But I don't think he's going to go up to, okay, he tried to send a probe across the map. Very important moment there, but there was a Marine very well positioned.
He tried like 3 times to get a probe across before he pushed on Vonnie, so that makes me very uncomfortable.
Okay, so now the only thing I guess he can do is drop a Nexus and go Forge.
Perhaps he's still warping in lots of stalkers.
But like, okay, we mentioned the SCP pools earlier, but you know, if Welmu decides to go up to 3 bases, then I can't really fault iaguz for putting SCVs before Storm is out.
This is like the #1 situation, I think. If you see him take that 3rd, you just pull the boys and go for it. Otherwise, take your own 3rd and just be way ahead.
Yep, it's 12 minutes into the game. There's no forge, there's no 3rd base. What are you gonna do, Welmu?
Like, there's no way that Welmu, I really don't think it's possible. Like, iaguz would have to seriously mess up for Welmu to win a fight against him if iaguz sees it coming in any way, because he just spreads his forces out, and he's already got a pretty solid number of Vikings. He's going up to 6, he has 4 more on the way.
He throws down a scan, he's like, still no base.
What are you up to?
Seems very, okay, now we have a forge, double forge.
Well, I don't know, Kev. It's going to be a bit tricky to make this work.
Yeah, I think now he's just going to poke and maybe try to pick off a couple of Vikings with a few blinks, but I mean, economically, Welmu is just in an awful position. His 3rd base is not even being wiped in. iaguz is up in the workers. iaguz has his orbital command, and he has a lot of Vikings over here as well.
Yeah, iaguz moves 2 SCVs out. He's like, come at me. And Welmu will, and iaguz is expecting this to be that big push. Still no 3rd Nexus on the way.
That's a really good start, though, for Welmu.
Yeah, grabbing a few Viking pickups.
3 Vikings before the fight starts. That's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, not too shabby.
But Welmu is still not wiped in the Nexus, Nate, and he's getting 1-1 while making this attack. This is a really bizarre playstyle by Welmu. This is not something we see very often in this day and age.
Yeah,
of
there's the
PvP.
time warp. iaguz is pushing into it. The force fields are going to hold him back. Stalker's blink forward again. There's 4 Colossi on the map, man. He's really trying to force, and I think this would be the biggest mistake is if he gets iaguz to overextend.
There are 22 Stalkers right now on the map against only 6 Vikings. There's still 4 more on the way, but the amount of Vikings that Welmu has sniped so far, man, if he makes this work, he makes TVP look silly, or PvT. Now he wipes in the Nexus, by the way, during all this, but this is actually the first time that I really like Welmu's army. Despite the fact that iaguz is slightly up in army supply, the Viking count is not where it's supposed to be.
No, this is a very tricky situation for iaguz, and it's so weird the way that this is happening. Like, Welmu's just making a push that shouldn't work, kind of do a bit of work. Yeah, he's coming up down the ramp now. iaguz, okay, those 2 force fields not really doing a whole lot, but the Zealots are getting on top of the army. Now as the Colossi start to fall, because he's fighting Marauders with his Stalkers, that really allows the Vikings to take this fight.
But the Stalker number is so high, Nate, that there weren't really a whole lot of bio units anymore. Now we're looking at Blink Stalkers. Of course, Marauders are extremely good, but, you know, does he have enough Blink Marauders left? Look at these Stalkers. Welmu's doing a really good job in microing them. Well, I guess
a crazy situation. He's going to try to push in with just gateway units. SCV's pulled again.
He still has like 8 gateways as well.
Yeah, the Zealot reinforcements will deal very well with the SCVs.
Oh my god, Welmu's taking
his 1-1 is complete. He's got his 3rd Nexus finishing. He's starting 2-2 now.
This is so bizarre. I can't believe that this is sort of working for Welmu.
Is this real life?
There's still a few SCVs, but iaguz has lost a lot of SCVs in the process. Actually, they're still even on workers, which I think is surprising considering the fact he lost 15. So he's been doing a really good job in producing SCVs during all this. iaguz is probably asking himself what is going on in this game. Like, why does his pros only have 1-1?
So this looked like a 2-base all-in to me. And now Welmu, who has that 3rd with no gases, can continue to pump out an absurd number of gateway units if he wants. SCVs being pulled once again. He moves the Zealots over to the SCVs to help deal with those. Now, iaguz is starting to get a pretty strong number of units. He built some more medevacs, so he's got the healing power necessary to keep these bad boys alive. And he buys himself some time.
But he lost 12 more SCVs, and now we are looking at 62 probes against 43. But iaguz's army is indeed a lot stronger than the army of Welmu, like Flo is showing us. Colossus is out though, 2nd Colossus is on the way. I think as soon as Welmu has assimilated number 5 and 6, which he definitely should have, because he's on 62 probes, so there's definitely no excuse for not having those assimilators up and running. If he drops the Twilight Console, I really like his position, but if he waits with that, I think he's vulnerable.
It's a Dark Shrine.
Or not a Twilight Console, excuse me, a Templar Archives, of course. A Dark Shrine is not bad, but I would prefer Templar Archives.
You know what, Kev? You said it, and here it comes. The SCVs, the choo-choo. Yeah. That's the sound of, you don't have Storm on the way, do you, buddy?
I did not know it sounded like that, Nate, but no, I don't.
I think if there's one thing iaguz knows, like, if you did all of that, there's no way you got Storm behind it. So
how many
the 3rd base evacuated, and I like that iaguz wants to attack in a position where that Nexus can't be used to distract him. And Welmu's like, all right, I'll send the probes back.
Okay,
starts opening a few cannons. Photon overcharges. The Vikings are going to try to go in on top of these Colossi. Only 2 Colossi. Yeah, and you said the force field's holding this army away, so
really
he can't move forward with anything.
If he kills the last remaining Vikings and those 2 Colossus survive, I think Welmu's in a phenomenal position.
Yeah, iaguz really pushing his everything that he has left, because he's pulled all of his workers with this attack. If he doesn't break him right here, right now, it's pretty much over with against a 3-base Protoss, but he is getting on top of this army. He's so close to the Colossus.
But there's one more Colossus popping. The cannons have finished. Photon Overcharge has done so much damage. Welmu is going to defend over here with Stalkers, Colossus, and Dark Templars, just off the back of some really phenomenal force fields and great focus fire on the Vikings.
That was absolutely phenomenal by Welmu. A truly difficult hold to make.
Yeah, that was very tricky.
Really impressive. And guess what? Now you drop the Mule Hammer, and your opponent is going to start bringing some DTs with their army if they want to go for a counterattack too.
And there is no armory on the side of iaguz. Welmu's 2-2 upgrades have finished up. Welmu's on 2-2. He's on 3 bases. He didn't lose any probes. Now he can drop a Templar Archives if he wants to. He could have done it before as well, but and that was a phenomenal hold by Welmu. Perfect force fields, Guardian Shield, Photon Overcharge, cannons, and great focus fire on the Vikings with the Stalkers.
Yeah, he did that about as well as you could really ask. Now the DT is going to come in. Does iaguz have any energy for scans? The answer is no. So he's going to have to evacuate this base again.
If I was iaguz, I would pause this game and be like, hey, you're supposed to go Dark Templars when you're behind, not ahead. What are you doing?
It's like, well, I thought I was behind at a couple points in this game, but you made some pushes into my force.
Oh, it's going to run outside of the scan radius.
No!
Yes,
sorry. As a Terran, I cry. All the Terrans in the world cried at once for iaguz.
Well, we're going up to 4 bases. I think iaguz is going to pull the last remaining SCVs. This time, Nate, they might still say choo-choo.
Yeah,
That's the sound of no
man.
storm.
This isn't the train, man. This is like the caboose rolling down the hill after the rest of the train already blew up.
Yeah, before it was a battle cry, and this time it's just like a whisper. It's like, you have no storm? But I got a lot of other things in Dirty Terran. So Archon is going to finish up. I think Charge is on the way. Molishim Core will get sniped immediately, but I don't think these Colossus will ever die. And these Protoss units, the upgrades, Nate. Upgrades.
Yeah, 2-2 is going to be more than enough. GG, Welmu takes the series 2-0 and will be the first player to advance out of this group
without
into the round
dropping
of 16.
a map.
Without dropping a map.
This guy just keeps doing it. Welmu, every single time he makes it to WCS, he just goes to the round of 16, and even now he took a break of a couple months. He shows up here, has a long journey all the way from Finland to Southern California. 2-0, 2-0. He's like, well, guys, I'm back, in case you forgot about me in the European scene. I'm still, you talk about Showtime, you talk about Hearthstone, you talk about Lilbo. Well, here I am. I'm still relevant. I'm still one of the best Protoss players in Europe.
Yeah, fantastic series. Fantastic set of games overall. Like you said, Kev, played today by Welmu. Going into the round of 16, another Protoss player.
I can't believe how this series went. Like on Vonnie research that he still made that work. Well,
it's like both games, I think, were prime opportunities for iaguz to win. Before the 4 medevacs moved out, then like Welmu really started to make big plays. The 2 medevacs that he threw into the natural expansion. Like, but aside from all that, like iaguz had that base up, he had the upgrades, and then game 2. Things just got really weird with the double forge. It's like, I'm going to all-in you off 2 bases while I start 1-1.
Yes, and then on a certain point, like, iaguz has like all the Vikings in the world, which normally is what we applaud Terrans for. It's like, man, just take care of the Colossus and then you'll be fine. And iaguz is like, all right, you know, he made a crazy amount of Vikings, and then eventually he did take care of the Colossus, but then we're looking at 22 Blink Stalkers.
Yeah.
Again, there's like a few
The very first time iaguz charged down the ramp of his 3rd base towards where the Colossi were, like the time warp and the force fields allowed the Stalkers to pick off so many of the Vikings. Then, as you said, by the time he rebuilds the Vikings, there's just a ridiculous number of Stalkers. And it's like, yeah, you killed the Colossi, but you don't have anything else.
Yeah, some people may look at this game and be like, man, that's just so silly. Like, this is not even supposed to work, and he made it work. But that makes it extra impressive to me, because Welmu did not play, like, you know, the greatest strategy ever on paper. But the reason why he made it work was execution and nothing but execution, because it's not the build that's in balance. It's just the way that I think that Welmu played this.
I don't think there's any Terran that looks at that and says like iaguz was in a bad spot when Welmu made that push. Welmu made it work. And I really think just did a fantastic job of baiting iaguz, because iaguz was probably thinking to himself like, well, you can't afford to make that much. So even if I take an unfavorable trade, I'm on 3 bases. And in that position, yeah, that's totally fine as Terran. He just traded away a little bit more than I guess he thought he could.
I think overall it was a phenomenal day by Welmu. I think things started off a little rocky in game number 1 against Hawk on Catalina. Game number 2 it looked a lot better. And then the series against iaguz, well, it was weird, but it was awesome, and he made it work. And I can't wait to hear from the man himself as he's on the couch with Sue.
Thank you very much, Rotterdam, and congratulations, Welmu, on making it first out of group H on toward the round of 16. I need to jump right into that game, too, as it was a little bit of a bizarre game. You chose to go for the same strategy. I'm curious, why did you choose that, and how did you make it work when you weren't in as good of a position the second time?
Actually, I made a big mistake at the early game. When I was scouting with my probe and I saw one Marine killing the probe, I thought it was CC first opening from him. And later on, like after he did the mine drop, I realized that, oh, Marine can't be out this early. So it can't be CC first, so I messed up big time there. I was actually going for a Colossus all-in without Blink. That was my plan, but then he went for mine drops, and I can't do that at that point anymore. So I had to change up my plan, so I thought I will just get Blink up and try the same thing as I did last game, since my plan got messed up a little bit. And it was probably a little bit bad choice from me, and he really well expected it in the second game, like he started early Viking production, and then yeah, I thought I couldn't break him, so I started Fortress and 3rd base and just tried to do as much damage as possible, and yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And talking about your consistency, never getting knocked out of the round of 32, that is quite the impressive feat, and today you did it again. What do you think separates you from other players that you continue to do so well every single time?
I don't know, maybe I'm getting lucky. I don't know.
Every single time lucky?
No, I think it's. I think I have pretty good mindset about the game. That you know, I don't really think like about losing and winning so much. I just think about how I can learn more and get better in the game. And yeah, I think I'm good in like thinking builds and like coming up with builds. And like when I watched Hux and iaguz VODs, I already could like simulate in my head the situations that could come up. And yeah, they went like I expected.
All right, well, last but not least, before I let you go, when I talked to you earlier today, you mentioned that you're looking forward to tomorrow as you wanted to explore California. Now that you came out first in your group, how much happier are you going to be? Are you going to spend a little bit more money?
Yeah, I'm much happier now. Don't have to be depressed tomorrow. Yeah, let's see how much money goes, but yeah, maybe I'm not going to use all the money I won here.
All right, well, congratulations again, Welmu, and best of luck in the round of 16. Guys, we want to hear your thoughts on all the action that's taken place so far today. Hashtag WCS on Facebook and Twitter. Of course, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Gigabyte, for making all of this possible. And we're going to go to a short commercial break, but when we come back, we'll have a final match of the night. It'll be between China and Australia. It'll be a rematch between the Gimli Terran and, of course, our Chinese Protoss Maxed. Will iaguz be able to repeat his magic from earlier today, or will Maxed flip the tides? Stay tuned to find out.